Jennifer Bleam, one of my favorites. I've known Jennifer for a few years now. She is a sales and marketing guru, or Sherpa, let's say specifically. She helps managed service providers, which are small to medium businesses that support IT support other small to medium sized businesses. I know a lot about the managed service provider area, being a former one. I had one for almost 30 years. I sold it, and now I do a lot of consulting there. But small businesses generally are led by, an MSP area, are led by technicians that are really good, and they're not good at sales and marketing. A lot of small to medium businesses suffer in that area. Jennifer's husband had a managed service provider company, and she took over sales and marketing, and she broke away from that. Now she does all of this coaching with her MSP Sales Revolution. She focuses on cybersecurity. When I talk to managed service providers, three things keep them up at night: security, human capital, how are they going to replace their technicians? How are they going to get new technicians? And then lastly, just growth, sales and marketing. How are they going to grow? But she's got really, really cool insight. We get to some basics, just talking about sales and marketing. What can small to medium businesses do? What can MSPs do? Have a system. She's got a really clever way of organizing and creating a system for these businesses. Always great talking to Jennifer. I love sales and marketing. I love technology, and I love helping businesses. And Jennifer is great at it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Very, very excited to talk to you, Jennifer Bleam. Thank you so much for your time. We've known each other for so long. It's nice to kind of have a little bit of a formal conversation where everybody can kind of hear and maybe learn something. Not sure. Why do small to medium businesses have such difficulty, generally speaking, with sales and marketing?
Yeah. So number one, it can feel complicated. It's nuanced, and it's not usually their natural language. It's not what they were trained to do. So especially in the IT space, it's interesting because I just shared this on social media. Part of the reason that marketing, I'll talk about marketing first, then I'll talk
Okay.
about sales. Part of the reason that IT companies struggle with marketing is that it's a test and then wait and see if it works. And with so many things, especially in the IT world, you kind of know instantly if it worked. You put this security protection in place, and it either stops the spam or it doesn't, and it's very easy to see. With marketing, you execute on a marketing strategy or a campaign or multi-pronged touches, and you may not be able to tell for months if it really worked. And so that is one reason that it's challenging. Another reason that marketing is a little hard is that it's always changing, and it feels a little like you're standing on quicksand. And you're never quite sure, like, is this the right thing? It was the right thing last year, I think, maybe, but has that changed? And so there's that shifting, changing sands, as well as a million different people in your ears, all giving you different ideas for what is going to work. And then one other reason that makes it a little bit challenging is that marketing is a system. So if you picture almost like like I'm picturing Iron Man and his the thing that's on his chest, right? Like you've got this circle, and then you've got all these little modules, and you change one little module out, and it changes the whole system. And so it's important that the system is working. But if it isn't working, and you have 3 pieces, 10 pieces, a dozen pieces in your system, how do you pinpoint which one is broken
Hmm.
or not optimized? It could be one or the other. So because of that, it is not the simplest thing in the world to troubleshoot. Now, on the sales side, the reason sales is frustrating in the IT world is it's similar in IT. If you have a system, it is always going to deliver the same thing. You follow steps 1, 2, 3, and you automatically get 4. Like 2 + 2 = 4. It always equals 4. It's never variable. It's just very easy. With sales, even if you have the perfect sales system and you follow it perfectly, you may not get a sale
Hmm.
because we're selling to humans. And then the inverse is also true. You could not have a system, so therefore you're not following it, and you could break all the rules and still luck into a sale. And that doesn't mesh well with
Hmm.
the very data analytical, process driven organization and individual. And so those are two of the reasons that sales and marketing are a bit of a struggle.
So, Jennifer, are you saying that marketing and sales is more art than science?
It is definitely more art than science, but there is some science. Like 2 + 2 does always equal 4.
Hmm.
Like there are fundamental principles that are always the same. So like you hear know, like, and trust. Like that is a fundamental principle that you probably could even come up with a framework to measure those things. How well does someone know me when they get into my ecosystem, or they download a lead magnet, or they hear me speak at an event or a webinar? How well do they know me? How likable am I, and do they trust me or not? And so there's ways you can put things into your marketing system to create the know and the like and the trust.
Hmm.
But it is, even though that is a framework, know plus like plus trust equals a sale or a sales opportunity, it's a little bit difficult to measure those things. And so
Hmm.
there is definitely art, even though there's science. It's probably art laying over top of science is probably
Hmm.
the best way to think of it.
And the difference between sales and marketing?
So the sales and marketing journey is taking a stranger from they've never heard of you before all the way to, yes, I would like to hire you, here's $1. Marketing, the job of marketing is that know, like, and trust, and getting people to kind of raise their hand and say, I maybe want to do business with you. Sales starts at the point that they've raised their hand and says, hey, I may want to do business with you. Then the sales process starts.
Hmm. Know, like, and trust. Get to know, then like it, and then trust it.
Mhm.
Very tough journey to map out for a prospect.
It's a tough journey to map out. It's a little easier to kind of step outside of that and say, what do I have in place to allow my marketplace to even know that I exist?
Mm.
Like there's so many companies that are like they're the best kept secret in their niche or
Hmm.
the best kept secret in their geography, and if they don't know that you exist, they aren't going to like you, they aren't going to trust you, they're not going to dislike you, they're not going to distrust you, they just don't know that you exist, so they're ambivalent, and an ambivalent buyer is never going to buy anything from you.
Mm.
So to kind of take those as sequential, like how are we getting in front of our audience? How are we showing up? When are we leaving the confines of our home office or our office? How are we being seen? Because it is almost impossible to buy something from someone, which is the ultimate goal, is to get someone to buy something from you if they don't even know that you exist. I would say it's probably impossible. The knowing, that know, like, and trust, the knowing piece is not optional.
Hmm.
The liking is probably the only piece of this that is a little bit optional. Like I can buy from someone that I don't like, but if I don't know that they exist, I'm not going to buy from them.
Mm. Mm.
And especially with IT and cybersecurity, if I don't trust you, I'm not going to buy from you. So maybe I don't like you a whole lot, but I know you exist and I trust that you can do the job. So then I'll buy from you. But ideally, we want all three of those
Mm.
ingredients.
I've heard you talk, Jennifer, about, when I talk to small businesses, managed service providers specifically, who's your target market? And they say anyone.
Yes.
The
Well,
shotgun, trying to boil the water,
yes.
boil the ocean, excuse me.
Boil the ocean. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. I
not a
mean,
good idea.
it's not a good idea, and it's interesting because you can learn a lot about marketing and sales when you're the buyer.
Mm.
So I encourage all of my clients to make sure that when you're in the buying seat, when you're the prospect, pay attention to what's happening around you. Pay attention to the the questions the salesperson is asking. How are they making you feel? Are you uncomfortable? Are they peppering you with questions, but the pacing is just right? And so you're just answering the questions, you're almost having a good time. And so, similarly, with what you just said, target market, a marketing message to everyone is a marketing message to no one.
Mm.
And so, as a buyer, I am looking for something specific. And so, for example, a number of years back, we were redoing our kitchen and we were getting blinds for the kitchen. And I wanted plain white, inexpensive blinds because at the time we were planning to sell the house. And I'm like, literally, they need to last 3 years until we sell this house. And so, as the buyer, that's what I was looking for, plain
Mm.
old white blinds.
Mm.
So if I got a marketing message that says high end custom blinds, they will last you 30 years, that marketing message is very clearly not designed for me. And that's okay
Mm.
because it would have disqualified me as a prospect because maybe I only wanted to spend $100 per window and their blinds were $1,000 a window. So again, I'm kind of flipping this on its head because so many business owners will give a generic marketing message because they think that's good. You want it to be so precise that it's going to disqualify people. That's
Mm.
how you know a marketing message is good, when people are like, yeah, I'm not going to call that company. I don't want what they have. That's okay, because what otherwise they're going to enter your world, enter your ecosystem. Your marketing team or your sales team is going to pester them to death, either by automated means or manual, and they aren't really a buyer because they don't want what you have. And so that marketing message that is generic is doing the end user no favors, and it's also not doing any favors for you and your team.
Mm. Yeah, it's very interesting when you reverse that. 'Cause now you're looking for something. What are you looking for? And so,
Yes.
yeah, it's a very clever way of positioning that journey. So your husband had you're in the general DC Baltimore area,
Yep.
and your husband had a managed service provider business, outsourced IT to small business uh, company, and needed help. So you took over the sales and marketing, correct?
I did. I did. So he still has his company. I'm just not involved in it anymore. But yes, that is really how I got into the industry. I was always a student of sales and marketing. I sold health insurance and life insurance and disability insurance. So in intangible, to business owners. So there's some
Mm.
great synergies there. And trying to prove the value of an intangible service is very different from the traditional sell me this pen, where you
Mm.
can touch it and feel it and hold it and experience it. And so selling health insurance and life insurance and creating the emotional connection, why I need this thing, translated very, very well into selling managed services. So yes, that's how I got my first foray into this industry 20 some years ago.
Mm. And now you're the cybersecurity sales marketing guru. Why focus on on security?
So there's a couple of reasons for that. When I initially started my consultancy, there was not a lot of instruction on how to sell cybersecurity specifically. So I'm an
Hmm.
MSP. I have already sold my clients on my typical stack, but now I need to overlay cybersecurity over top of it. How do I have that conversation? How do I prove the value? How do I charge what I should? and still make the sale. And there's a lot of muscle memory around selling managed services, but at the time there really wasn't a lot of training or support or even any muscle memory around how to articulate the value proposition of cybersecurity. It's
Mm,
still an intangible, but it's different. Managed services, you can promise a lot of great things. You can promise optimization. You can say, we're going to resolve your issues before you even know about them. We're going to deliver peace of mind, all cover all of your issues under this one thing. Cyber is very different. You can't promise the moon. You're promising risk mitigation. You're promising a higher likelihood that they will be safe, but you can't promise essentially bulletproof security.
mm,
Whereas 5 or 10 years ago, you could promise, 5 nines uptime and all of these things. Those are kind of, you don't hear about that anymore because you can't promise that with cybersecurity, or you shouldn't be promising that with cybersecurity. And so that's the reason that I started. I call myself the Cybersecurity Sherpa. And now most of my clients are bundling cybersecurity with their managed services. But I do have a handful of clients that are just selling the security side. And so it's interesting just to kind of come a quick full circle. Again, a marketing message to everyone is a marketing message to no one. People come to me and they're like, I am just doing security. I know you can help me sell it because that's what you're known for.
mm,
As opposed to, yes, I can help with your sales and marketing in the IT industry. One is very broad, one is very narrow. And
mm.
because I've narrowed, I have a niche that other people can't touch.
Hmm. Managed service providers, MSPs, have been forced. When I talk to them and ask them what keeps them up at night, it's been the same three things for a good right around when COVID started. The first one is security. They're all worried, Jennifer, that their clients are going to click on some email, they're going to get ransomware, and that they're going to have to deal with that. Second is just human capital. What happens if my big tech leaves? How am I going to replace them? How am I going to get new technicians? I'm competing against really big firms that can pay so much. And then lastly is just growth, sales and
Yes.
marketing. How am I going to grow? PE has poured all this money into the industry. I'm starting to look. My friends are selling their business. How can I get a bigger multiplier? So it's tough to be an MSP now, and cybersecurity ranks on top. But that coupled with growth must be an open market for you. There's so much help that's needed.
There is so much help that is needed. And yes, it's an open market. And the great thing is that there's a lot of sales and marketing coaches in this space, and that's
Mm,
okay. That, number one, tells you how big the challenge is, and number two, if we're going to go back to know, like, and trust, like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, right? Everybody doesn't like my methodology. And that's okay, because there are enough people out there who do love what I teach and they
mm,
can learn from me and they will hire me, that it's okay. It kind of goes back to the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset.
mm,
Scarcity people are like, there's not enough business to go around, so therefore, I need a really broad marketing message to try to find the 3 or 4 clients this year who might want to hire me.
mm,
The the abundance minded person says, I'm not afraid to have a very tight niche and to really be crystal clear on who I serve because I know that they're out there. Some of it is abundance mindset, some of it is also doing good market research, but they both have a very, very solid place in a growing business, believing that there's market out there, believing that no matter what thing happens to you, it's really happening for you, and you're going to
mm,
be able to learn from it and apply that to your business and your world, and you'll come out of the other end better for it, better person, better as an organization. And all of that is so important to growth and scale.
mm. I know you have a multi-point kind of system that you walk prospects through, but you mentioned that you're not everybody's cup of tea, Jennifer. Why wouldn't you be? What makes you different? What differentiates you from the others?
So some people, so one of the things that makes me different is that I deliver unlimited coaching to my clients.
Huh.
So everybody doesn't want that level of accountability and visibility and hand holding.
Hmm.
And so for that reason, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Another reason is that I teach my clients how to think about marketing. I don't give them a cookie cutter system. I help them create something that is customized to their organization. And my clients love that. They don't want the cookie cutter. They don't want the templates that look like they were printed when there were newspapers.
Hmm.
But some people want that. And so some people want like a cookie cutter system, and they want to believe that it's going to work for them. It frequently doesn't. Cookie cutter is very seldom the answer. But some people do want that cookie cutter system. So I also keep my client base very small. And so that allows me to give very white glove, very hands on service. But some people are looking for a large community. They're looking for peer groups. They're looking for
Hmm.
to be able to kind of find the 4 or 5 people that they can bond with, and then they can get into a peer group and bounce ideas off, commiserate, talk about business. I don't offer peer groups because my clients don't want them. And so they're like, a lot of my clients will say, yeah, I'm with Evolve, or I'm with, I have a BNI group I'm very close with, or I have a local accountability group that I'm a part of. I don't need a peer group. I just need good direction in terms of marketing and sales. And so when that is the case, that's 100% a fit for me.
Hmm. You mentioned cookie cutter. Explain what you mean by that.
So there is this belief that some marketing gurus have that marketing can be one size fits all.
Ah.
I don't believe that marketing can be one size fits all. And
Hmm.
let me just tell you why. Let's just create a very quick marketing plan. I want you to do a chamber of commerce. I want you to do video marketing, and I want you to do cold email outreach. Well, guess what? If you're in Canada, cold email outreach doesn't work. If you aren't good in front of video, and you're so not good because you're introverted and you can't even look at a camera in the eye, let alone a person in the eye, video isn't going to work. And maybe you're in the midst of a rural area and there are no chamber of commerce, BNI, peer group type of things, or there's none that are good. And so I just gave you a cookie cutter marketing system
Hmm.
that won't work for you. And if I'm the type of coach that gives a cookie cutter marketing system and then it doesn't work for you, I'm never going to blame my system. I'm going to blame the client. It's the
Hmm.
client's fault
Hmm.
for not
Hmm.
following the system. That's just not genuine to who I am. And so there are fundamentals, there are principles that you always want to follow, but there is no cookie cutter. There's
Hmm.
no one right answer.
So, going back, Jennifer, yeah, it's kind of templatizing. I've seen this before. Just take these templates and run.
Sure.
And some of them, what was one, you get like some nuts or some pecans or something. You send it to a client, and then you say, "It's been driving me nuts to contact you," or some things like
Interesting.
like these kind of. I was going to use the term hokey, but just kind of, I don't know. They might work in some cases, may not. You mentioned before kind of defining your market. So, you know, when I talk to managed service providers, to try to get them to hone in on a market can be tough, because even small to medium businesses, because okay, so I'm in one particular area where hospitality might be booming, but something might happen. A hurricane hit the Tampa Bay area recently, and that's going to knock that hospitality out for a month or so. It's hard to kind of pick an area, so people are afraid. Perhaps owners are afraid to kind of limit themselves. What do you say to that?
Yeah, so this is another area where I'm a little bit different from some others. I don't require my clients to pick a niche. Now,
Hmm.
if they want to pick a niche, that's great. But if they don't want to pick a niche, that's okay. But then we have to get very, very specific and very clear on who is the right client. And the right client is not any small business owner with 10 to 100 computers, because a 10-person, let's just picture a 10-person law firm. A 10-person law firm, if you picture that in your head, 9 cubicles and a desk, like an office, like 9 cubicles plus an office with a view. Okay, that's a 10-person law firm. A 100-person law firm is probably 10 attorneys, 10 paralegals, and 80 of the worker bees that are
Mm,
doing the work.
mm,
And so they could be on multiple floors, they could have multiple buildings, they have more complex infrastructure. So therefore, they have different problems that they're looking to solve. And marketing is all about the problems I'm going to solve for you.
mm,
So the problems of that 10-person law office and the problems of that 100-person law office are completely different.
mm,
Their
mm,
goals are different. Their frustrations are different. The name of the title of the decision maker, vastly different. The sales process, very different. 10-person law firm, you're probably talking to the person who owned, founded, their last name is part of their law firm. 100-person law firm, you're probably not going to initially be presenting to the named partners. You're probably going to be presenting to a practice or office manager, or a maybe a paralegal, or maybe
mm,
the director of ops, that type of thing. And so because your sales process is going to be different, your marketing has to be different as well. So we need to narrow it down. A niche is great, a niche is fine, but if we're not going to niche, then we can't say any business with 10 to 100 computers, because those are not the same entity, they're not the same organization. So we're back to boiling the ocean.
mm.
And that's part of why the marketing messages are generic, because, well, if we make them too specific, we'll either repel the 10 user network or the 100 user network. And we don't want to repel either of them. So we're going to do this very plain vanilla, we fix your computers. Well, that's nobody wakes up in the morning going, oh, if only I could find a computer fixer. That's not what they're looking for.
When you reminded me, I had a discussion just recently with a MSP, and the problem is, it's not the problem, but most of them are tech led, so
Sure.
they don't have a marketing and sales mindset, and they created some marketing material, and it was so feature rich. So don't deliver feature, deliver value.
Yes.
Features are for manuals and for guides, but you have to show value. Fixing a computer is not showing value.
Yep.
That's just a feature. There's a big difference there.
There is. And I love using AI, but I literally this morning was using AI. And this is why you can't just give a prompt and then copy and paste it. You have
Mm,
to know what you're doing. You have to be able to edit it. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I finally said, my prompt was, those are really great features, but I want you to give me benefits. And I want those to
mm,
be overwhelmingly rich benefits. And so my little trick for, is this a feature or a benefit, is if I say something like, we're going to deliver 24/7 support, if the end user has to say, so what, or what's in it for me, or why would I care, or, oh, okay, that's nice, and they're like, I don't understand,
mm,
then you just gave a feature, not a benefit.
mm,
But if you slide in the word so that, like, we're going to give you 24/7 support so that you never have to worry about
mm,
where you are, when you have an issue, where in the world you are, and you never have to wonder if we're awake, because we're giving you 24/7
mm.
support and it's never a bother. So just those words, so that, that's your hack to know if you're giving a feature or a benefit.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm going to respond in 15 minutes to any question you have, so that that you can resolve your problem and continue working more efficiently. Yeah, that's
Yes.
really cool. Yeah, yeah. So that was kind of like what is those exercises when they do improv and then they say, and they want them to continue. I can't remember the term.
Yeah. And then they hand it off like from one
Yeah,
person to the
yeah.
next. Sure.
So if the business owner, be it a small, medium business or a managed service provider, insists that this 10 to 100 is really our market, then is it the job of the marketing to say, okay, but we're going to do this campaign on this market? You could keep that as your market, but for a campaign, we can't shoot that wide.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I had a client who said, no, we want to do 10 to 100, then I would segment it,
Right.
much like we would segment it if I have a client that has three verticals, actually. And so
Mm,
that adds a lot of complexity. I don't recommend that necessarily, especially if you are an owner that is leading marketing. Let's keep this as simple as we can. We can always make it more complicated
mm,
later,
mm,
but let's at least start with simple. But if you were bound and determined, like no, 10 to 100, and maybe there's extenuating circumstances, maybe you're in a geography and there's just not a lot of businesses in your area,
mm,
then I would at least segment it. And so we would probably split it like maybe 10 to 25. That's somewhere in there. And then the higher end would be maybe 75 to 100, and then whatever that leaves us in the middle, 25 to 75. And then we would potentially have some campaigns, some offers that throughout the year where they focus on our smallest, our medium, and our largest type of prospects.
hmm. The odd thing about verticals is that I know for my MSP, the vertical found us. We ended up working with an architect who referred us to another one. In our area, there happened to be a lot of architects. So we just became heavy on architecture. So it found us. And so it made it easy to kind of do more. So when you talk about segmenting, you're kind of segmenting horizontally by workstations. Would you then even narrow it even more and pick a couple of verticals in that 5 to 20 workstation?
Yeah, you definitely can. So my husband's vertical found him accidentally as well. So he's not chasing that vertical anymore. And that, by the way, this is the danger in picking a vertical, which we
Yeah.
may talk about. But he ended up serving several of the larger oral surgeons in our area. And similarly, they have a tight knit community. So once you service one and you do a good job, very quickly
Mm,
you can
mm,
line up a second, third, fourth, fifth. Oral surgeons tend to be very technology heavy because electronic medical records and x-rays and things like that are now digital, so digital x-rays. And so same thing, it found him accidentally. And I would chase that. If you're looking at your client base and you all of a sudden say, I have, oh, look at that, I have 5 manufacturing companies. I mean, I wasn't marketing for them, but I like them and they're good and they pay their bills and they value what I'm doing, and I kind of know their business now. I can speak their language. That is a very good indication that maybe we should make that your vertical or one of your verticals.
mm. Yeah, I heard you talk about that, Jennifer. That some of the companies offering the EMS started piling in managed services and kind of cut them right out.
Yeah.
Bad story.
So it's a danger, right? I mean, how many? I know several MSPs that were focused on hospitality, and then this little thing called COVID came in, and it
Mm,
wiped out the hospitality industry, and they lost their businesses because they were so focused on a niche. So it's as with anything. Be aware of do that SWOT analysis. There's strengths to having a niche, but there's also weaknesses. And so sometimes that's why people will have a second niche. They're kind of hedging their bets, like, okay, maybe the hospitality industry will dry up, but I also am serving accountants, or I have accountants but I can really only market to them maybe 6 months out of the year because of seasonality. I am not going to do a whole full technology refresh during tax season. And so I have a piece of my market that I can't market to. So I have to kind of put that niche on the shelf, and I hope I have another niche to market to if I have accountants. So
mm.
that's a very good argument to have more than one niche.
Okay, so we're the small medium business, or we're the MSP, and now we've segmented, maybe even picked a couple verticals. We're talking about business to business, B2B here. What are some of the better ways to try to market to these segments?
Yeah, for sure. So I go back to basics. So I have a marketing codex that I present, and the prequel to that codex is what you just mentioned. Who is it that we want?
Mm,
Who are we hunting for? Who are we fishing for? And then after that, I like there to be some branding in place, and so that can be something as simple as your website, blogs. Social media. So that's most MSPs have that already. Most IT companies have social media or blogs already in place. Then I want us to say, okay, how are we attracting those people into our ecosystem? How are
Mm.
we building a list of those people, and getting and we can do cold lists, but I also like there to be some warm lists. And so we build those lists, then we nurture and we stay in touch, and we're gradually adding as much value to those people as we possibly can, and then finally we make offers to them. So
Mm.
those are kind of the four pieces of my marketing codex.
As far as social media, is there a platform that's better than others when going B2B?
Wherever your people hang out.
Right.
So, for example, managed service providers, I have a paid ad strategy that's pretty robust, and we were doing Facebook and Instagram, but then we looked at the data. So, data is king.
Mm.
We looked at our Instagram ads were doing very poorly.
Mm.
Some of that is because a lot of MSPs are not on Instagram.
Mm.
And if they are on Instagram, they're popping out, they're checking on specific people, and then they're usually bouncing out. It's the user behavior on Instagram is for an MSP is more similar to their behavior on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
It's not exactly synonymous, but Facebook. And my demographics tend to be a little bit older, kind of the 50 and up. They're on Facebook. That's where they're doom scrolling all day long.
Mm.
They're jumping onto LinkedIn 2 to 3 times a week. They're jumping on
Hmm.
Instagram maybe when a kid or grandkid shares something, but they're not really on the platform like they're on Facebook. But that's my market. And so if you're selling to younger people, then probably Instagram, maybe TikTok. I know I'm the security person. I just said TikTok. You might be able to create a secure way to, maybe you have a TikTok specific network and a TikTok specific phone, and so maybe there's an argument for using TikTok, but definitely Instagram if your demographics are there. So you want to fish where the fish are biting,
Hmm.
and if you don't have any fish in that social media platform, then don't fish there because no
Hmm.
one's going to bite.
So everything that we talked about really at this point, well, mostly now it's just been marketing, getting to the outreach, getting to them. Where does sales start to take over?
Yeah. So as soon as somebody says, "Hey, I might want to talk to you," so they've downloaded a lead magnet, they fill out a form saying, "Please contact me," or your marketing person, which might be you with just a different hat on.
Mm.
You're at a BNI event, and they're like, I was really interested. You posted that blog or you posted that checklist. I really need that thing. Can we have a conversation? So that's where sales takes over, is when there is somebody who is interested in talking to you. Now, there is an argument to be made that you could be doing cold outbound, which technically falls under, most people put it under the marketing umbrella. I think it is more suited for a salesperson. If you're going to be doing cold outreach, it is technically always put under a marketing category, cold outreach. But to me, it's really a function of sales. And so that's why there is just a little bit of overlap between marketing and sales.
So
So then
sales.
the job of sales is to take them from I raise my hand and it's a maybe all the way to it's now a yes and I've given you money. So that's the sales piece of the equation.
And again, so when sales meets and talks, I mean, it's still a lot of you're talking about value, not features. You're talking, it's very similar kind of strategy.
Yes, 100%. It's interesting because a lot of the things that we talk about in marketing, know, like, and trust, features, making sure we're doing benefits, not just features, those are often talked about on the marketing side, but they don't often come up in a sales conversation, but they are so applicable to
Mm,
sales.
mm, mm,
So, you're going into a sales interaction and maybe they know about your organization. So maybe they know about MSP Sales Revolution, but they don't know Jennifer.
mm,
So, how can I create that know, like, and trust for Jennifer? Because again, they may buy from MSP Sales Revolution, but not if I'm the sales rep and they don't know me. And so we've got to have that know, like, and trust. If I'm just going benefit, or feature, and people are like, why do I want all those things? You're going to get the I need to think about it, that kind of dreaded objection or stall,
Mm, mm.
or you're going to get what I call bobblehead prospects. It's when the prospect does this
Ah,
and they just nod their head, and then they give you the I need to think about it, and they're
right.
not really thinking about it. Nobody goes back and thinks about it. Like, I just don't know what to do. Usually I need to think about it is a polite way to say, I don't want what you just told me, or I don't understand what you just told me, or I don't like the price because the price is out of alignment with the value of what you offered. So
Mm,
usually I need to think about it. They're not really thinking about it, usually.
mm. You just have to have a plan. I started my MSP in the early 90s, and I'm just as guilty as, I remember hiring a salesperson and handing him the yellow pages, Jennifer, and saying, okay, go, get, I need work tomorrow. I
Smile
mean,
and dial.
yeah, it's just terrible, terrible. Didn't have a plan. I don't even know if we had a good CRM at that point, to kind of track everything. You just have to kind of come up with a system. And I like your kind of diagrams and everything, the way you think about things, whatever that system is for the owner, for the manager, for the director. There has to just be a system.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. Like, where do I start? Because we've talked about know, like, trust, the customer journey, the marketing system, the sales system, the objection handling frameworks, the know, like, and trust on the sales side, the social media. Like, it is a very long list. And the MSPs that are the most successful, they start where they are. And every quarter, they just raise the bar a little bit. They
Mm,
add something else to the marketing codex. They add something, maybe they connect two disparate pieces of the puzzle. That's something that I see a lot. I know
mm,
we're sort of talking about sales, but I see that a lot on the marketing side where, maybe we have a blog, and we could potentially point the blog to our website with a call to action. And that's a very easy thing to do if we already have a blog that we're creating that's getting traffic and we have that whole 15-step SOP figured out, and we have offers on our website. It becomes this light bulb moment, like, oh, maybe we should just connect the blog and the website. Let's point the blog over to the website. We're already pointing the website to the blog, and the more of those connections we can make, the stronger. Kind of picture like a scaffolding, like we're making the scaffolding of that system even stronger, like we're just joining those links together.
yeah, you
Start
mentioned
somewhere.
absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned SOP. Yeah, standard operating procedure needs to be in place. What is there anything different about sales and marketing of cybersecurity versus other services, managed services, or just any other services?
Yeah, so a lot of people struggle to market cybersecurity and to sell it because they don't like to use FUD, fear, uncertainty, and
Mm,
doubt. There, when you're selling and marketing managed services, you're sort of reverse engineering. Like, okay, what is the thing that I'm offering? Let's go back to features and benefits. So the feature is 24/7 support, so that they can work from anywhere, and no matter what time of day or night, they can submit an issue through the ticketing system and it gets resolved. Well, that is something that we can market very easily. Remote workers. CEOs that travel a lot. That kind of dovetails into maybe some content around laptops and security around laptops. And so it's easy and comfortable to market. When we get into selling and marketing cybersecurity, it can feel a little bit like we're marketing fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And people don't want to, generally, IT companies don't want to sell fear. They don't want
mm,
fear-based selling. And so there's some shifts that need to happen, because I never want you to sell unfounded fear.
mm,
But if I said, listen, if you go into an organization, 20-person CPA firm, and they're using 10-year-old computers, and they don't have a firewall. Instead, they have something they got from their internet service provider. It's not really a firewall, even though they think it's a firewall. And they have no security protections in place. And they're using a Gmail account. And let's see, I'm trying to think of one other thing. They have no antivirus consistently deployed across the network. It is not fear mongering to say, you are highly vulnerable to a security incident or an
Mm,
attack or a hack or a ransomware attack. All of those things. None of it. So we are not creating fake fear, and that's a subtle difference, but it is important that the prospect get a little bit concerned and a
mm,
little bit alarmed, because they have to engage their emotions if they're going to make a buying decision. I should say, you, the salesperson, have to engage their emotions if you want to make a sale. And so it can be fear. It really probably shouldn't be promises of rainbows and kittens and the promised land, because you can't promise that. Like, legally, you cannot. I shouldn't say legally, but um, ethically, you
mm,
can't promise you'll have no more cybersecurity issues, because that isn't the world that we live in.
mm,
And so, because of that, people tend to shy away from, how do I sell then if I need to engage the emotions? And fear is a strong emotion, but I don't want to use fear. Well, you simply need to paint a realistic picture of the impact on their organization. Like, stress is an emotion.
mm,
It's closely tied to fear, but if you don't want to freak someone out, you can just let them know that they are going to be under stress. Their organization will be, so will their team if they do nothing. And so that is technically, probably, it falls under the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but you're not doing it to manipulate the prospect. You're doing it because you need them to be as aware of their risks as you are. So it's
mm.
about risk. It's a form of risk mitigation.
How about let's do an assessment once we get the assessment back, and then we'll decide on, what needs to be done. Do you often do that tactic?
I'm probably about a 50-50 split, maybe a 30-30-30. So there's nothing wrong with that. There are organizations that teach that. I also, and that's okay. If that is your approach, I have a sales system that will work for that approach. Then you're really expending a lot of time, because you have that first sales discovery meeting. Hopefully it's before that you're doing a disqualification call or a qualification call. Then you have your discovery. Then you or your tech team has to do the assessment, which possibly means going back out on site. And then you have a final sales call where you're doing the result of findings and you're presenting a proposal. Probably 30% of my clients do it that way.
Hmm.
Sometimes the assessment's paid, sometimes it's not paid. But that doesn't scale to larger organizations. Larger organizations that are a little more mature with their buying process, and they're probably talking to three or more potential vendors, and they don't want to pay for three assessments. They may not even want three free assessments. And so it's a very different sales process. So one is, I'm going to do the assessment. The second one is, I'm not, but it's strategic because I'm selling to larger enterprises. And then there's the middle, kind of that middle ground, where I have clients who don't do an assessment. They have very strong sales skills, and so they don't need to rely on the assessment and the result of findings. And instead, they pivot this, and one of their unique selling propositions is that no matter what we find, we will fix it as part of our ongoing management and
Hmm.
maintenance.
Hmm.
And so there is, once again, there is no one size fits all.
Right.
If you're not a strong salesperson, then I would probably lean towards the assessment, because that assessment can do a lot of the selling for you, but not all of it. You still have to be able to sell the value of what you're doing. And so there is no one right way.
Hmm. Jennifer, has there been anything in recent history that you changed your mind on?
I'm sure. I'm sure. Let me think. That's an awesome question. Um, yes. So this is more philosophical, if you will. But I used to subscribe to, let's celebrate our wins, let's identify our losses, and we will go from, we'll learn whatever. I don't look at them as losses anymore. It's more than just a how am I labeling it? It's more than just a labeling thing. I don't look at I don't look at my life. I don't look at like, let's say, a failed marketing campaign or a ad strategy that didn't work. It's no longer a loss.
Hmm.
It's data. It is just data. And so uh, let me just give you a silly example.
Please.
15, maybe 20 years ago, my husband and I got our first GPS unit, right? It wasn't baked into the phones. Little kids, if you're
Great.
listening, we
It's
didn't
great.
used to have it on our
Yeah.
phones. We'd have to like suction cup it to the window, to the, the front window, and you'd have to push updates, like you'd connect it to your internet and push updates to it. And then it would connect to this satellite. And it was like the coolest thing ever. And we used it for the first time on the way to a family reunion. And I'm in Maryland. The family reunion was outside of Pittsburgh. And so we're driving and we're talking and we're going over this bridge. And my husband's like, this just doesn't feel right. And I'm like, you're right. It doesn't feel right, but there's a lot of water in Pittsburgh, and so maybe there's a road that's closed. Maybe this is a different way to get there. And so we're going, and all of a sudden we're in like the woods, and it's like one of these from a horror movie. Like the trees are closing in around us, and it's dark, even though it's like the sun is out, but it's
Mm.
dark. And it's like, turn left. And we're like, okay. And so we turn left down this narrow one lane. I don't even know that it was a road. It was really kind of like maybe it would be a road in 10 years, and literally there was a guardrail. And the GPS was like, you have arrived. And we're looking around and we're like,
Congratulations.
we have clearly not arrived. This is not where we want to be. And so that's data, because even though the GPS said we've arrived, the data was the guardrail. That was
Mm.
like, your GPS may be telling you you've arrived, but we're all smart enough not to drive through the guardrail. We're looking around, and there is no campsite around us where the reunion was supposed to be happening. And so we could choose to get mad at the guardrail,
Hmm.
but that guardrail is there to protect us. Maybe there's a ditch on the other side. Maybe there's a river that washed out the road. Like we all see the little orange things on the little cones on the road. Maybe just me, have been tempted to remove them because clearly there's nothing wrong. I'm just going to move the cone and go around. But the guardrail, the cone, the data, the loss, if you will, it is there to give you information. And so that guardrail is like, come this far and no further. So the marketing campaign that failed is like, you targeted the wrong people, or your
Mm.
message was poor. And so they're not, it's not a loss, it's data, it's a lesson.
Hmm.
And it's up to us as business owners to extract the lesson, and then hopefully, if we're savvy enough, apply it so that we don't make that same mistake
Mm.
again. So
Mm.
our mistake was following the GPS mindlessly and not being like, this bridge is not right. We think
Hmm.
we should go left, but it's telling us to go right. We're just going to mindlessly follow the GPS. So we didn't apply our previous lessons, and that's why we ended up in the middle of nowhere. We still chuckle over that to this day. Oh, you have arrived. No, we have not. GPS, you are wrong. We are
Hmm.
not where you think we are.
It's important to be able to have to be open and be flexible enough to change perspective on such things.
Sure.
All too often in our society, we see this polarization where people kind of dig in. But I like to ask that question just to kind of we're not all like that. Just the people that are on that get some of the notice are a bit polarizing. But yeah, that's very refreshing attitude. So I started my MSP in the '90s, Jennifer, and I was working way too hard and not paying attention to my weight and my physical. Oh, I put exercise behind me. I was working 14-hour days. You're no stranger to this. Many small business owners
Sure.
do the same thing. I got myself up to 340 pounds. And the doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. She was just born. So I took the next 6-7 months and lost about 130 pounds, kept it off. You can't look at it as a finishing line. Many people have these goals and then they just revert to where they were before. We have to in this particular case, we have to continue. It's a lifestyle change. So people ask me what the secret is. It's a big deal. Uh, and of course, there's no secret. Jennifer, discipline is always my answer, right? I got
Yes.
routine, I got system, I got order, I got restraint. How does discipline play a role in your life, Jennifer Bleam?
Yeah, for sure. So I agree with so much of what you just said. So I've always been reasonably disciplined.
Mm,
Checklists and morning routines, um, setting up a to do list at the beginning of the week and just chunking down and prioritizing that to do list. Where I wasn't as disciplined as I should have been, ironically enough, was with diet and exercise.
mm,
So I started this journey towards health and fitness, and the same thing. It's not like, oh, I want to get to this certain weight and then I'm done and I can go back to eating Doritos and
mm,
Oreos and
mm,
all the things. To me, it's a lifestyle shift. And so I started this journey probably maybe 15 or 20 weeks ago.
wow.
And for me, it was less about, a doctor, by the way, the doctor scaring you, rightfully so,
Yes,
fear,
yes,
uncertainty, and
yes.
doubt. That was well used. So there's a lesson there. I'm not going to go back to that conversation, but
Mm,
there's a really good lesson there. But for me, it was just more, I didn't like the way my body felt. Like I
mm,
was feeling my knees would hurt, or I'd be out of breath going up the stairs. It was nothing major, but I was astute enough to be like, well, this is new. And left to my own devices, eating a bag of Doritos on the couch or Oreos. Like I like crunchy things. So pretty much you name it, if it's crunchy, I like it. And pretty much almost everything that's crunchy isn't really that good for you. There are exceptions to the rule. Carrots are crunchy, cucumbers are sort of crunchy, but I didn't like the person that I had become. And
mm,
so I changed, and I joined a fitness program. I changed my diet. I am still actively working on changing my fitness routine. That
mm,
piece is coming a little bit more with difficulty, but it's amazing when you're eating whole foods, and I do still occasionally participate in some sugar, but there's ways around that as well. I cut out coffee and carbs and sugar completely, cold turkey, and didn't
wow.
have a cup of coffee for 10 weeks.
Wow.
And because what I realized is I didn't really like coffee. I liked the glug, 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 glug of the really bad for you sweetened creamers, not even like just cream, but like with all the fake 57 ingredients in it
Mm,
that last forever in the refrigerator, which is a hint that they're not good for you, because
yeah.
good things that are good for you typically expire pretty quickly. And so I just did cold turkey. Now, I did discover a couple of weeks ago you can make cashew cream. And so I make my own cashew cream. We've got a high speed blender, and you can just blend cashews and water and it forms creamer. And it's, I mean, let's face it, it's not
Wow.
as good as like the caramel macchiato heart disease in a bottle. But it makes the coffee drinkable. And so now I drink about maybe 3 cups of coffee a week, whereas before I was 2 to 3 cups a day.
Mm,
So big change, big change. And I'm noticing, of course, the scale is changing. That's nice, but a clarity, energy, more drive than I had before, and I had a pretty good amount of drive before. The ability to juggle more tasks efficiently
mm,
has gone up, and some of the body changes, like the creaky joints and the pain, has
mm.
also gone away. And I will say this, and if you're listening, you can feel free. I'm going to give you permission to hold me accountable. I bought a cold plunge. Haven't used it
Ah.
yet, but I bought a cold plunge. So when this drops, if you're listening to it, you feel free to tag me on social media and ask me if I'm using my cold plunge. And that is my own hack to keep me accountable to
Mm.
getting it set up and starting to figure out how to use it. And that's going to take another level of discipline, because I don't like cold water. Most of us don't like icy water. So, but it's supposed to be amazing for mental clarity. So
Oh,
that's kind
yeah.
of the next thing that I'm going to implement in the weeks to come.
Good for you. Good for you. I've gotten to the habit of turning the shower cold for the last minute. Of course, it's not as cold as the cold plunge, but it does shock you and get you motivated a little bit. So when you're working with these business owners, there's a certain level of discipline you need to instill in them just to kind of teach them of these systematic ways of approaching an area that
Yes.
they don't like, but they know is completely necessary in order to grow.
Yeah, so one of the easiest ways to institute discipline, I have something that I didn't come up with this, but it's called the 30-day gratitude challenge.
Mm.
A gentleman by the name of David Meltzer created this, and when I did this 30-day gratitude challenge, it literally changed my life. I know that's like such a flippant phrase to use, but it really changed my life. And the concept is for 30 days in a row. And by the way, if you miss a
Oh,
day, you have to start back over at day one. Think whole third or think 75 hard, that kind of an idea if you're into
right,
health
right,
and fitness.
right,
But
right.
for 30 days in a row, first thing, sometime in the morning, sometime around noon ish, and sometime in the afternoon or evening, you need to list three things that you're grateful for.
Mm.
So morning, noon, and night with a little bit of flexibility in time for 30 days. Well, it took me, I think, 4 rounds before I finally got through all 30 days. And
Wow.
I finally said, well, wait, I can just set an alarm on my phone. I can just set a reminder on my phone. It actually still goes off to this day. Morning, noon, and night, be grateful. And it's amazing what happens when you, first of all, realize that is such an easy thing to do. Stop for 2 seconds and think of three things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And just do that 3 times a week, or sorry, 3 times a day. And you realize, like, day one, you're gung ho, and day two, you're like, oh, almost missed. And day three, you're like, I'm not going to miss. And then you get to day four, five, six. If you're really good, you get to day 10, and then you fall off the wagon. And that lets you, it first of all kind of makes you realize, okay, I'm human. Look how easy, like I'm already seeing the benefits of it by day 10. I'm seeing the benefits of it, and yet I still fell off the wagon.
Mm.
Oh, that probably says something to me because I'm not going to start a marketing campaign and 10 days later I'm going to see the benefits. Probably. You might.
Mm, mm,
But
mm,
if I can't stick with something that I'm seeing the benefits for 10 days without setting a reminder or creating a mechanism or a checklist on your bulletin board or a little mental hack, like every time I stand up I'm going to think of something I'm grateful for or whatever, like you start to realize how easy it is to fall off the wagon. And then you're like, okay, I need systems to remind me. I need a daily checklist, or I need a check in call, or I need a reminder set on my phone. It doesn't make me a bad person, it makes me completely normal. And so that 30-day gratitude challenge, first of all, it changes my clients, just the way they look at the world and the
mm,
opportunities that they see. But it also reminds them how important discipline is and how difficult discipline is and how
mm,
difficult it is to implement new habits.
mm.
And so just that realization is very helpful.
What motivates you, Jennifer?
What motivates me is helping other business owners step into the best version of themselves.
Hmm.
Like literally, if I could coach for free and still meet all my other goals, I
Right.
would do it.
Hmm.
I would 100% do it. I love helping people, and I love watching the um like it's not infrequent that a client will come to me and they're in a, they've kind of wrapped themselves around the axle. They're in a tizzy. They're feeling like everything's out of control. This happened actually just a few months ago. They were like, listen, I know we have 30 minutes because I give unlimited one-on-one calls to all of my clients if and when they get to this point. Like, I know we have 30 minutes. We're going to need all 30 minutes. And I'm like,
Mm,
that's fine. That's good. What's going on? And so he went on and on and on for like 5 minutes, barely coming up for breath. Again, totally fine and sometimes normal. And I asked three questions, and I literally had to say, are you still there? Because he
mm.
got so still that I thought the Zoom had frozen. And he's like, you just solved the problem. He's like, I'm good. I know exactly what to do now. And I'm like,
Uh,
okay, good. Can you tell me what it is? Because I'd like to know. And then it forced them to repeat it. And that's what I love. Those aha moments where it's like and I have coaches for the same reason, right? Like I will make things so complicated and I will work myself into a tizzy. And then I'll get on the phone with a coach and they'll say, "Oh, this is easy for me."
mm,
Right? That's
mm,
always like that parentheses. And they're like, "This is what you need to do and why." And I'm like, "Perfect. I'm good now." Because I can execute. I just need someone to kind of point me in the right direction. I don't need anyone to pull the string. I'll pull my own string. But if I pull my own string and don't know where to go, I just kind of spin in circles. And if someone I can pull the string and then someone's like that way, and I'm like, I'm good, then I'm off like a rocket. And that's what I'm able to do for my clients. And I just absolutely love it. It's probably one of the first things in my life where I'm like, I would literally do this for free.
mm. Impact.
Yeah.
So, given that motivation, Jennifer, how do you measure success?
As a business owner, it's about revenue and profitability.
Mm-hmm.
As a That's kind of the logical business owner side. Emotionally, I actually measure success by something I call graduation. A little bit different of a business model. I have month to month agreements. I have clients that stay with me as long as they want and as long as they are getting value from me. And what that means is that sometimes clients are with me for 8 months, 9 months, and they're like, I think I'm ready to spread my wings and fly. And I call that graduation.
Mm,
Like you mentioned, you've got a daughter. I've got kids. Like the goal, sort of, is for them to get to the point where they spread their wings and fly and they leave the home.
mm,
That's why we're raising them so that they can stand on their own 2 feet and be contributing members of society. That's why I have clients. So ultimately, they've built their own marketing system, their own sales system, and they can do it on their own. Now, I do have clients that are like, I can do it on my own, but I really like those calls with you. Can I stay engaged? And of course, the answer is yes. But to me, that graduation day, of course, it's bittersweet because I know I'm not going to see them every week. Of course, the revenue is gone, but it's more like I did my job. I helped them learn what they needed to do. I
mm,
helped them put a system in place and it's working and they're so successful and they've learned how to troubleshoot and they've learned how to think about marketing and they know how to look at the numbers and they know how to create marketing campaigns and they've outgrown me. And that's okay. That's a good thing.
mm. That's wonderful. I love what you're doing, Jennifer. I've been admiring you for a long time. It's helping MSPs, small to medium sized businesses, grow because just the stigma of sales and marketing with them. It took me a long time to,
Sure.
I've become a decent marketer despite my best efforts, right? Because I knew it was necessary and just general maturity and just what growing and selling my MSP and so it's just there. But helping these businesses grow is just and the SMB is the backbone to not only the American economy but the world economy.
Agreed.
So it helps everywhere. Thank you so much for your time today. Anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you, Jennifer?
Best thing to do is go out to my website, mspsalesrevolution.com. I have all kinds of free resources there that you can download, things to help with your marketing, help with your sales. That's your best bet. I'm also on every social media, almost. I'm on Facebook a lot, I'm on LinkedIn. So just look for me there, and I'm happy to connect with anyone.
So great, Jennifer. I look forward to seeing you at the next event. Maybe we'll have a cup of tea, and then if I'm ever in the greater Baltimore, D.C. area,
That would be amazing.
you be well.
You too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.